including Bill. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage for the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith. Will be providing our commentary for the duration of this coverage. Take two of SpaceX's attempt to launch the Starlink 7-11 mission tonight. Broadcasting from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau at NASA's Kennedy Space Center here in Florida. Our Stephen Young is running the technical operations of the broadcast. Our photography team of Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane have the evening off from launch photography duties, but I do see Michael Kane is putting on his moderator hat, helping out the other mods in our live chat. Michael, good to see you as always, sir, even if it's in just a virtual sense. We're now T minus 26 minutes, 49 seconds and counting to, as I mentioned, the planned launch of the Starlink 7-11 mission. This will be another batch of the Starlink V2 mini satellites heading up to low Earth orbit for SpaceX. Do have word from SpaceX coming into our live launch coverage this evening that they are in the midst of propellant load on the Falcon 9 rocket supporting tonight's launch. They say the vehicle is good to go as far as the system itself, and now all eyes are on the weather. We hear that there may be some rainstorms moving in towards the area of Vandenberg Space Force Base. So SpaceX trying to beat the inclement weather if it can and see this rocket launch at the start of the window. That launch time currently targeting 6:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 02:15 UTC. In order to get everyone situated on where they are with the propellant loading process and what's remaining left in the count, let's go ahead and step through our launch countdown timeline. The count began, as it always does for a Falcon 9 flight, at T minus 38 minutes when the launch director would give the go ahead or take the poll for the start of propellant load, which we know that they have. Prop load began at T minus 35 minutes with RP1 or rocket grade kerosene being loaded onto both the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 vehicle. At the same time, liquid oxygen started flowing aboard the first stage of the Falcon 9. It's followed up at T minus 30 minutes when they started loading cryogenic helium on board the vehicle. It's an important part of the process because that helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T minus 26 minutes, helium was loaded on board the second stage of the Falcon 9. Similarly, with events we see here on the East Coast at about T minus 20 minutes, 50 seconds, the strong back chill down process began with the very visual big vent. Happens before, comes up at the bottom of the screen there. You see T minus 16 minutes when liquid oxygen starts being loaded on board the second stage of the Falcon 9. Both the first and second stages use the same propellant mixture, RP1 and LOX. And at T minus 7 minutes, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines gets underway. It involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and the turbo pumps. Protects the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. And T minus 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At that point, we should have video and mission audio coming in from SpaceX. We'll see the strong back retract sequence begin. Starts with the clamp arms underneath the Falcon 9 payload fairing opening up. And then a little bit different here compared to an East Coast launch. The transporter erector will recline back about 13 degrees away from the vehicle and then pull back a little bit more aggressively when it's ready to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9 rocket. T minus 3 minutes out. The first stage liquid oxygen tank should be completely loaded. 2 minutes before liftoff, the second stage LOX tank loading concludes. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, the control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The launch director will give their go for liftoff at 45 seconds out. T minus 3 seconds, the engine ignition command is issued. And then, of course, if all 9 engines ignite and are healthy, the flight computer will give the command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 for a T0 liftoff again this evening, targeting 6:15 p.m. Pacific. Coming into the launch, I know we saw a couple of our channel members mention that conditions were getting a little visually obstructive in the Vandenberg area. So it seems like some of our Southern California friends may not get great launch viewing tonight. Hopefully, once we have eyes on the vehicle at about T minus 5 minutes out, we'll be able to actually see the rocket. As many folks who've seen Vandenberg launches know, it can get quite foggy in that area, even if it's not going to be a rainy day. We're now T minus 21 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Coming up on the big vent. We certainly appreciate the nearly 3,000 of you who are joining us for our live launch coverage this evening as we close out what has been a very busy week of space news coverage. If you haven't already, great way to help us is to click the like button on this video, share the stream. It allows the YouTube algorithm to do its thing and bring this live coverage to more folks as we come into the final 20 minutes of the count. We're also powered by our wonderful community of YouTube channel members. So to all of our channel members out there who are with us tonight or may watch this on a replay, thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to consider channel membership, it's a great way to not only support what we do here at Spaceflight Now, but membership also comes with a number of perks, including access to our member-only videos, discounts at our online shop.spaceflightnow.com, as well as 4K live streams of all the missions that we cover launching from the Cape. And last but not least, another great way to support what we do here and become part of the conversation is by using the YouTube Super Chat feature. If your comment or question is appropriate to be read on our broadcast, we'd love to bring you into the chat. Just as we saw with Jesse Mason, one of our wonderful channel members with a $5 Super Chat. Really appreciate that, Jesse. Glad to have you with us tonight. Thanks for being a member. Now, T minus 19 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. Just mentioning it was a busy week on the space news front. We had the Japanese space agency JAXA successfully touched down on the moon today, became the 5th country in history to have a successful soft touchdown on the moon. However, it was not without its setbacks. Currently, the solar panels are not drawing power and it's not allowing the batteries to become fully charged. So there's concern that though they were able to safely touch down, that the mission itself may be fairly short-lived. We were also covering, of course, the latest news and updates on Astrobotic's Peregrine lunar lander, which was aiming for its own landing next month. However, if you've been following our coverage of the saga or the great transparency from Astrobotic themselves, they encountered a propulsion issue which prevented them from being able to reach the moon. They did get out to lunar distance, but It was at a point in time when the moon was not there, so they made the decision to bring the lander on back. It re-entered Earth's atmosphere right about 4 o'clock. They lost telemetry data about 3:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so Astrobotics CEO John Thornton giving extensive update on that this afternoon, along with some other Astrobotic leadership members and NASA's Joel Kearns, talking about the wrap up and conclusion and some of the early lessons learned from that mission. I bring that up in this context because if you did not have the chance to join us this afternoon, we had our weekly news from the press site conversation that is currently up on the channel right now. We were fortunate enough to be joined by some great journalists on the space beat. Some names you may recognize as well. Lauren Grush with Bloomberg, formerly with The Verge, and author of The Six, but the first female astronauts that were selected for NASA's astronaut corps, as well as Marcia Smith, the founder and editor of Space Policy Online. It's a great, robust conversation, about an hour long. So if you're looking for something to fill your time on perhaps a drive this weekend or doing some chores around the house, go ahead and pop that on in the background. Good audio conversation to listen to, or if we want to watch the show as well. Great way to get caught up on some of the big news items that we were tracking this week. We're now at T-minus 16 minutes, 9 seconds and counting. Just as a reminder, news from the press site is live every day, nominally at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to tune in next week. We'll have lots more news to unpack between now and then, as well as a roundup of all the orbital launches to boot. I want to thank Jones Family Ranch for a $5 super chat as we're coming into the final 15 minutes of the count. At this point, we're about 20 seconds into the start of LOX load on the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. This is the last fueling step that had yet to begin. It is now underway. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I was just reading. Now T-minus 13 minutes, 3 seconds and counting. Just mentioning, reading up a little bit on the progress of the Ingenuity helicopter for those who may not be following the Mars adventures these days. Ingenuity is the helicopter that has been flying in tandem with the Perseverance rover. NASA just released an update from JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab, noting that they just had the 72nd flight, which is quite remarkable. That was yesterday. However, while they had telemetry data as it was making its ascent, as it was making its descent, unfortunately, they lost communications with the Ingenuity helicopter before it landed. And so the team is trying to work to establish connection again with the very really tenacious helicopter and the team that has been able to push it far beyond what they had imagined it could accomplish. So it'd be disappointing to see it meet its end, but given it was remarkable for it to have flown as successfully as it has and for as long as it has, I think it is nothing short of a remarkable success story for JPL and for the whole Ingenuity team. So we will continue to track that and watch that as a story item. And perhaps that'll be something we're discussing the news from the press site coming up next week. But of course, we'll have more news on that if news becomes available. T minus 11 minutes, 4 seconds and counting. Let's go ahead and talk about the telemetry of the Starlink 7-11 mission. 22 Starlink V2 mini satellites on board. Let's walk through where the rocket will be going once it leaves the pad. Vehicle is going to be taking off from SpaceX's launch site in Vandenberg, Space Launch Complex 4 East, or Slick 4E. When it does, it will fly in a southeasterly trajectory, and the first stage booster will land on one of SpaceX's 3 drone ships. Being that this is a West Coast launch, they're going to use the only drone ship that is currently in operation on the West Coast. Of course, I Still Love You. And this is poised to be the 80th landing drone ship on that particular, or of a booster on that particular drone ship. Coming up on T minus 10 minutes and counting, about 3 minutes away from the engine chill down sequence beginning. We're now T minus 7 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. About 30 seconds away from that engine chill down sequence. I want to thank a few more folks for their support. Harrison Spain with a $5 super chat. Really thank you for that, Harrison. As well as Greg Sylvia with a $5 super chat as well. Eric Dickens, who's been a member for 1 month. Thank you so much, Eric. Pod leader level. Says he's watching from San Antonio, Texas. Doing a great job. Keep it up. We certainly will. And hopefully the weather will cooperate tonight. We'll actually get to bring you the launch of Starlink 7-11. And last for now, Omar with a £5 super chat who says, love these streams. I know I've had no contribution, but just being a part of this scientific generation makes me so proud. Lots of love from London. Well, thank you for staying up late in London or maybe getting up super early, whichever your fancy, but glad to have you aboard with us. And, I think it's all of us get to be a little bit a part of this adventure in space in our own little way, whether it's supporting, becoming more knowledgeable about it, or making direct contributions to the advancement of it. I think gaining scientific literacy and understanding helps improve the whole endeavor writ large. We're now T minus 6 minutes, 3 seconds and counting. About a minute away from when we expect to start being able to bring you views of the rocket. So let's go ahead and step through the launch countdown timeline before that happens. Of course, the Falcon 9 is set to lift off at 6:15 p.m. Pacific, 9:15 Eastern. We followed at T plus 1 minute 12 seconds at max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. T plus 2 minutes 26 seconds. The 9 Merlin engines will cease firing for stage main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's followed up 4 seconds later by stage separation. And then 6 seconds after that, the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite for its first burn. T plus 3 minutes 5 seconds, the payload fairings that are currently protecting the Starlink satellites will be jettisoned and scooped up by a recovery vessel, brought back and turned around for future flights. T plus 6 minutes and 15 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin, lasting a total of 22 seconds, thereabouts. T plus 8 minutes, 8 seconds, the first stage landing burn begins. Should land on the drone ship, T plus 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Then in T plus 8 minutes, 38 seconds, the Merlin vacuum engine will cease firing and go into a parking orbit. And at 53:45, there'll be a quick 2-second burn, setting up for Starlink satellite deployment at T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 47 seconds. And with that, we now have views of the rocket. Look at that. And T minus 4 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Just as a quick point of note and housekeeping, our countdown clock, as you see, about 10 seconds or so ahead of the SpaceX clock. Ours is in real time and SpaceX is on a slight delay. You see the transporter erector now starting to shift away from the Falcon 9 rocket. So we're now less than 4 minutes to the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 vehicle. In the final minutes, if you haven't already, if you could click the like button, make sure a few more folks are able to make it in here for SpaceX's next flight of its Falcon vehicle. I'm sure that would be much appreciated by a number of people. This is set to be SpaceX's 7th orbital flight of the year, its 3rd from California.
Stage 1 lock load complete.
T minus 2 minutes, 31 seconds and counting. For that call up for stage one LOX load complete. Coming up shortly, we should hear a call out for stage two LOX load complete. At that point, the Falcon 9 vehicle will be fully fueled and ready to fly from a vehicle readiness standpoint. We're now less than 2 minutes away from the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket. Going to go ahead and take down our countdown clock
Stage two LOX
for
load
now.
complete. Gas closeouts.
Just know that if you are in California and have your eyes actually on the area where the Falcon 9 will be launching, just be aware that it'll be heading up about 10 seconds or so ahead of the time that you see here on the SpaceX feed. Now a minute to visual
Falcon
liftoff.
9 is in startup, and we have aborted.
And we have an abort call from SpaceX. Just about as we were hitting the minute mark, SpaceX called an abort tonight. Listen in for a moment to see if they give an explanation for this. Odds are it may be weather related, but we'll wait to see if SpaceX will confirm that. Again, if you were just now joining us in the hopes of catching the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch for the Starlink 7-11 mission, as you see on the screen, SpaceX has called an abort tonight. They have not given a reason for it, but we know that weather was certainly a watch item heading into tonight's window, and that there was some rain expected to move into the area right around the time that the window was opening. And without an explanation, SpaceX is ending their stream, as we again do have unfortunately another scrub tonight. As was the case with last night, they did get into fueling, and once fueling has begun, SpaceX is not able to push to later in the window, unlike other launch vehicles like, say, United Launch Alliance Atlas rocket. Once SpaceX starts fueling the Falcon 9, it is committed to the T0 time that fueling timeline puts it on. And so SpaceX standing down from tonight's launch attempt. While we don't know with absolute certainty that they will go ahead and try this launch again tomorrow night, they do have additional backup opportunities listed for Saturday, January 20th, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific. 9 p.m. Eastern. I realized I was muted there within the program, I think. We'll go back and make sure everyone gets their dues and want to thank folks for supporting our coverage before we go ahead and wind things down. Our thanks to MAHFL, one of our wonderful channel members, for a $2 super chat. Really appreciate that. GTD 4711 for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, GTD. Want to really thank Jim Edgar for a very generous $50 super chat. Really appreciate that, Jim. Thank you so much for supporting at that level. This super chat coming in before the scrub, as he says, Lisa Bean, Jim Sr. and Jr. watching from Seattle and Florida. Go Falcon, go Starlink. Well, Jim, hopefully we'll be able to bring you this launch when it does happen. Of course, we'll be here whenever they are able to launch it. Hope you're able to come back and join us and see the launch for yourself. I want to welcome Stuart Filler supporting us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Really appreciate that, as we are powered by channel members helping to keep us going here at Spaceflight Now. And the wonderful super chats also allow us to do more and bring you increasingly better coverage, both with increased availability with these streams, like our now weekly news from the press site show, as well as some on the ground reporting that we look forward to bringing you in 2024. Got a We're hoping will be a good reporting trip actually coming up this week. Just waiting on some things to be finalized. So looking forward to giving you an update on that next week. Hopefully, sometime in the early part of next week, we should get all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, but that should be some good coverage coming your way on that. Our thanks to Gilbert Goobies Castro for a $5 super chat, who says, "Hope I can see it here in Santa Barbara." Unfortunately, of course, that was also before the scrub itself. So, Gilbert, we certainly hope you're able to see it whenever they're able to launch. And finally, Callistia Lee, one of our wonderful channel members, joining us back with a super chat here at $10. Really appreciate that, Callistia, who says, "At least I got to chat with some of my favorite people tonight. Thanks, Will, Mods, and all of Spaceflight Now for all that you do." This is Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. The reason we have not ended our stream just yet is we are still standing by waiting for additional word from SpaceX. If there's any further explanation on the reason for the scrub before we go ahead and close things out tonight. So we are just standing by for a few more minutes here. Alrighty, well, we still haven't heard any additional updates from SpaceX, but we're going to go ahead and close out our stream for this evening. If we do get any additional updates, either on the reasoning behind the scrub itself or when the next launch attempt will actually be, we will post those updates on our social channels, X and Threads. Again, SpaceX's next stated window of opportunity opens up on Saturday, January 20th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and thank all of our wonderful moderators in the live chat for helping to keep things moving tonight. And in particular, our Michael Kane for helping out the mods. See Drumwolf hard at work in there as well. So thanks to you both. And if I may have just glided past one of our other mods, sincere apologies, but definitely appreciate all that you guys do. Want to thank our Stephen Young, our editor here at Spaceflight Now, for running the technical support for this live launch coverage. And most importantly, want to thank you at home for being with us this evening and bearing with us as we unfortunately have another scrub of this mission. Hopefully, third time's the charm. But whenever it launches or whenever they make an attempt, you can count on Spaceflight Now to be there and provide you whatever coverage is available to bring you. And with that, really want to thank you for being with us tonight. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and we will see you next time. Good night.